21st of September every year is the International Day of Peace, as declared by the United Nations General Assembly through Resolution 36 and 37. Since then, the day has been devoted to keeping peace, strengthening the ideals of unity and equality, diversity and oneness, harmony and compassion, and above all, advancing the culture of peace. This year has as its theme the right to peace, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights at 70. So far, how has this annual event impacted positively on human lives? What are the challenges to peace and the benefits? How can it be sustained? This is our focus on Panorama from the Lagos Network Center today. But first, the reports making the rounds. I am Hingino John Adams. We will be right back. Don't go away. Thanks for being there. President Muhammadu Buhari is in New York ahead of his address to the United Nations General Assembly today. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that this is the fourth time the president will be addressing the world's largest diplomatic gathering since coming to power.
President Muhammadu Buhari, accompanied by his wife Aisha Buhari, arrived JFK International Airport, New York, at about 7:30 Sunday evening local time. On hand to receive him were Nigeria's permanent representatives to the United Nations, Professor Tijani Bande, Nigeria's ambassador to the United States, Silvanus Nsofu, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Security Advisor, and some other senior government officials. And as the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly formally convenes on Tuesday, President Muhammadu Buhari is scheduled to present Nigeria's national statement in line with the theme for this year, making the United Nations relevant to all people, global leadership, and shared responsibilities for peaceful, equitable, and sustainable societies. He is expected to reaffirm the nation's commitment to, among others, international peace and security, sustainable socio-economic development, climate change, rule of law, and human rights. The Nigerian leader will particularly canvass international support for the fight against corruption, the return of illicit assets, counter-terrorism and insurgency, curbing irregular migration, resettling IDPs, as well as recharging the receding Lake Chad.
You don't have a global stage larger than the United Nations. So when a president can address the world through the United Nations platform, he better bring everything that is very important to him and to his country. But the significant thing for the Nigerian president this year is that he will not only be talking about Nigerian issues, he will be talking about ECOWAS issues, because he's chairman of ECOWAS, so everything that affects the sub-region he can bring up at this global forum now. So those issues will continue to be talked about till we have progress made on them. And I think in the past 3 years, this is the fourth outing that the president has been talking about those issues. I believe we are not where we were 4 years ago on those matters.
During the course of his week-long stay in New York, the Nigerian president will, apart from attending several other side events, is also expected to have bilateral meetings with African and world leaders, including Bill Gates, with a view to promoting national, sub-regional, and African interests.
You know, Nigeria has rediscovered herself and has got its place back in the Committee of Nations. There was a time that other countries drew back from Nigeria, but Nigeria is in the warm embrace of almost every part of the world now. So it's a deepening of that relationship. And as our president meets other presidents, you can be sure that everything that is important to Nigeria will be brought up, particularly those three things that are key to him. Fighting insurgency, uniting the nation, securing the nation, and then reviving our economy, and then fighting corruption. So any meeting he holds, those three issues always come up, and they are for the good of Nigeria.
President Buhari will also grant audience to a select group of Nigerian professionals based in the United States. From New York, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Meanwhile, wife of the president, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, who accompanied her husband, President Muhammadu Buhari, to New York for the 72nd session of the United Nations General Assembly, will also be engaged with the spouses of other world leaders on issues surrounding the need for the enhancement of the lives of women and children. State House correspondent Aliu Kabir reports.
Of the president who accompanied her husband, President Muhammadu Buhari, for the week-long activities of the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly is expected to be engaged fully in the activities of the spouses of the world leaders at the sideline of the assembly. This includes her meeting with the wives of the African leaders at their 21st summit of the Organization of African First Ladies Against HIV/AIDS, AFLA, focusing attention towards eliminating of mother-to-child transmission of HIV in Africa. She is also expected to deliver an address during the high-level stakeholders meeting on the fight against tuberculosis at the Global Ambassador of Stop TB Partnership, among other engagements.
She is also going to present a keynote address in one of the very important sections, which after Mr. President participation in the morning, in the evening she is going to also address the Congress on tuberculosis. She's also expected to be given an award by the Global Women Empowerment Movement here in the United States on her achievements on what she's doing in Nigeria. And she is meeting other First Lady, like the First Lady of Turkey, as well as the First Lady of the Republic of Niger, to discuss issues about the women empowerment, the retention of girls in school, and also to improve the girl education generally in Africa.
Mrs. Buhari is expected to leave New York for Nigeria on the 29th of September. From New York City, Aliu Kabir, NTA News.
Nigerians have been urged to resist every attempt to truncate the unity of the country and work to uphold the basic universal values of right to peace. This formed the nucleus of a conference organized by the Justice Department and Peace Center, Maryland, in commemoration of the 2018 International Day of Peace. Chidi Malkonu's report is presented from our studio.
The International Day of Peace was established by the United Nations in 1981 and has since been observed on the 21st of September. It provides opportunities for individuals, organizations, and nations to undertake acts of peace and kindness. It also encourages people across the globe to engage in activities that promotes peace. In commemoration of the day, the Justice Department and Peace Center held a press briefing in Lagos. Director of the center, Reverend Father Raymond Anilefo, expressed concern over the high rate of insecurity, which he says negates the desires of Nigerians to live peacefully together. He stressed the need for strengthening of existing bonds and institutions that symbolize the indivisibility of the country.
A peaceful world would be impossible if urgent steps were not taken to achieve economic and social development for all peoples everywhere, while ensuring that their rights are protected. Goal number 16 emphasizes peace, justice, and strong institutions, and calls for the promotion of peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, providing access to justice for all, and building effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels.
The Justice Department and Peace Center says unity and peace can be further entrenched through a new social and political order hinged on mobilizing the people around common interests.
To discuss more on the 2018 International Day of Peace, here in our studio is Reverend Father Raymond Anilefo. He is the Director, Justice Development and Peace Center in Lagos. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
The theme of this year, the right to peace, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights at 70. What is it all about?
Well, it's about peace, basically. Obviously, after the Second World War, the world became tired of a lot of quagmire, a lot of fighting, and hence there was a need for world leaders to sit together and let's talk. We have to talk now, enough of brow, enough of the brawling, enough of the fighting, and so there was a need to discuss. So it was the aftermath of those discussions after the Second World War that gave birth to this Universal Declaration. And today we are having 70 years after it. We've made some progress, obviously, in the world. We have not had wars at global stages, but if you ask me, are we already where we think we ought to be? I'll probably say we still have a fair mile to go.
What do you mean by a fair mile to go?
Yeah, because everywhere you look around the world, there's some problem or the other. There are infightings everywhere. Countries, nations are torn apart. And let's look back home. Nigeria as a country, are we at peace? That's a very big question. Peace may not necessarily mean the absence of war, but like we all know, it's the presence of justice. And so if we look at the presence of justice as the hallmark for defining if there is peace in the world or peace in Nigeria, as it were, I think you will agree with me that we are still not yet there as regards peace.
So now, how can government globally ensure that her citizens enjoy that peace?
Well, every government around the world has a primary responsibility to ensure that there is peace in the land, because when there's no peace in the land, there cannot be development. But before even the advent of the peace, and that's why we actually JDPC, Justice, Development and Peace. There must be justice first. Now, if justice, ordinarily speaking, will mean giving to each his due. Now, if we have a government that takes the rights and the responsibility of the citizens, the welfare of the citizens as priority, then we can have some reasonable level of justice. And when you have that justice, peace will probably become a walk in the park. And then from there, you can begin to talk about development at various stages.
Now, despite these declarations, we still have various forms of conflicts. Why?
Well, many reasons can be adduced. You know, globally, there is a whole lot of will to take us where we ought to be.
And now, how can this culture of peace be built?
First of all, justice must be given. Give to each man his due. We need leaders. We've not been blessed, I would say, with the type of leaders that we would want to. We need leaders who will be worth the metal. Leaders who will have the political will to do what they ought to do, what they are elected there to do. And when we have leaders who will deliver on their mandates, who will deliver the dividends of democracy and what the electorates have put them there for, I think we can begin to talk about it.
So now, what will you advise Nigerians to do to ensure a peaceful 2019 general elections? Briefly.
Yeah, the votes. We can't talk of PVC anymore. Everybody ought to have theirs. But we should know that there's need for us to vote and vote responsibly. It's our right. We hope that civic education will continue, voters' education will continue, and everybody needs to know that this country belongs to us. And so we all have to be involved in reshaping the future and bringing about lasting peace that we all talk about.
Thank you for coming on the program.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.
You're still watching Panorama from the Lagos Network Center. More stories after this break. Stay with us.
Chief. Good morning, sir. You're here already?
No. Now my spirit day, my body day for house. What kind of question is that? Were you not the one that fixed this meeting for 8 a.m.? You are now coming by 10 a.m. and start asking me jam questions.
But Chief, now, I'm sorry. Don't you also go late for meetings sometimes? You know now, African time.
No more African time. And no more pancaking of face during office hours. At the end of the day, we will lose valuable time. We will not make progress. If we want to move this nation forward, we must treat business as business and respect time. Change begins with me.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry. Can we go for the meeting now, Chief?
Better.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Slavery is an evil practice abolished all over the world over 200 years ago. But today, human traffickers are selling human beings as slaves in Africa. It is your responsibility to make sure that you and the people you know do not fall into slavery. Don't believe fake promises of jobs abroad.
People went to say Libya, Italy. Italy no use you when they carry me on top water. 4 days now they lock me for inside house, no food, no water. I nearly die. Now God, when me heaven and earth, now save me. If you get 1 naira for Nigeria, you get junior one, you say you no get papa, you no get mama, now make you come out. I beg go they do farm work. You better pass person when enter road.
Don't accept to travel to Europe through the Sahara Desert. You may be walking into slavery. Don't be a slave.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Thanks for staying with us. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says the federal government will ensure adequate compensation to flood victims. The Vice President made the promise in Kogi State in continuation of his visit to flood-ravaged states across the country. Ilyasu Ali Yakubu reports.
And Professor Yemi Osinbajo said as soon as the water recedes, government will initiate deliberate policy that will bring a lasting solution to the perennial flood disaster in the country. While commiserating with the government and people of Kogi State, the Vice President said President Muhammadu Buhari is touched by the plight of the victims. The Vice President was accompanied by the Director General of NEMA, Mustafa Mehajja. Available statistics by NEMA shows that over 80 people have so far been displaced and more than 40 persons lost their lives in the 9 local governments affected by floods in Kogi State. From Cotton Karfe, Kogi State, Ilyasu Aliakubu, NTA News.
Global experts are in Abuja working on a common front against human trafficking and immigrant smuggling. The participants are from about 70 countries.
Interpol Global Conference on Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling is, among other things, aimed towards providing global view on current threats and trends, the financial flows behind the crimes, the crucial role of cross-sector partnerships, how to overcome obstacles, as well as the use of technology and data in investigation. In his message to the conference, President Muhammadu Buhari pointed out that unless nations fight corruption, the people's commonwealth in developing countries like Nigeria will end up in private pockets, exposing youth to poverty and vulnerability to trafficking.
Collaborative efforts of our relevant security agencies have resulted in several interceptions, arrests, and prosecution of traffickers and smugglers.
Nigeria remains steadfast in its commitment to address human trafficking and people smuggling. And I would like to commend the progress it has made in contributing to the Interpol Global Early Warning System.
The Nigerian police have been at the forefront in the fight against this menace, and its commitment is demonstrated.
Director General, National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, calls for a collaborative effort to fight the ugly trend.
People are becoming more aware, and it means that we're winning the fight against trafficking.
The conference continues on Tuesday.
The move by ECOWAS to sustain the full operational capability of the region standby force through rapid deployment has been identified as key towards maintaining peace and security in the region. This is coming from the Commandant, National Defense College, Rear Admiral Adeni Ashunowo, at the Command Post Exercise Planning Conference in Abuja. Defense correspondent Olajide Bello reports.
The conference aims to coordinate and plan for the command post exercise codenamed Jigui 4 and review of work completed since the initial planning conference. Emphasis will also be on the exercise scenario, control, timeline, technical assessment towards achieving robust deliberations and strategies to sustain the ECOWAS standby force full operational capability.
The National Defense College is pleased to host this important conference, which adds up to the series of activities that seek to test the capability of the ECOWAS standby force in conducting strategic and operational level planning and multi-dimensional peace support operations.
Using our regional expertise, building on our training centers of excellence, the experts who are facilitating the work to us, and our own staff within the Commission.
The ECOWAS Peace Support Operation Division is formed by the planning element at the strategic level with 4 components: military component, police component, civilian component, and mission support component, working together to have multidimensional peace operations in our region.
The conference is part of recommendations of the Maputo 5-year strategic work plan on the African Standby Force. From the National Defense College in Abuja, Olajide Bello, NTA News.
The Nigerian Air Force has commissioned its remodeled forensic facility and a new Provost Investigation Service headquarters in Lagos. The Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, who commissioned the facility, says the police force looks forward to interagency collaboration with the Air Force to make the best use of the forensic laboratory. Ime Udori compiled the report.
The footprint of the Nigerian Air Force is spreading into all areas of security towards keeping the nation safe. The new forensic laboratory is to facilitate the application of forensic evidence in crime investigation. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, says the last time provost personnel were trained in forensic investigation was 30 years ago.
The Nigerian Air Force is also at the advanced stage.
Next